The first thing I noticed when I walked into the cabin kitchen that Wednesday morning was that my brother had already moved my mother's pillbox. It was sitting on the windowsill above the sink, in a patch of cold November light, when it should have been on the nightstand next to her bed. A small thing, the kind of detail most people would miss, but I'd spent 11 years working as a hospice nurse before I switched to oncology, and I'd spent the last 6 months driving up to this cabin every other weekend to help Mom do her chemo, and I knew where that pillbox lived. I picked it up. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday were empty. Wednesday was empty too. It was 7:14 in the morning. Coffee? My brother's wife was standing in the doorway in a flannel robe, holding 2 mugs like she'd been waiting for me to come downstairs. Her name was Sloane, and she had the kind of smile that always made me feel like I was being measured. "She already took them?" I asked, lifting the pillbox. "I gave them to her with applesauce around 6. She was awake early. She doesn't take the morning ones until 8. Sloane handed me a mug. "She was uncomfortable. I just moved it up a little. You can call her oncologist if you want." I almost did. I almost pulled out my phone right there. But it was the day before Thanksgiving, and my mother was sleeping for the first time in 3 nights, and my niece and nephew were going to be running to the cabin in 2 hours, and I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself a lot of things that morning. I'm still trying to figure out which ones I actually believed. My name is Holland Breyer. I'm 31 years old, and I'm the youngest of 3. My older sister lives in Oregon with her wife and twin daughters and almost never comes back to Pennsylvania. My older brother, Rafferty, lives 40 minutes from our mother's house in a development where every lawn looks the same. He's an accountant. He's been an accountant for 14 years. He married Sloane 6 years ago, and the wedding photos from that day are the last time I remember him laughing like a person who was genuinely happy. Our mother's name is Genevieve, but everyone calls her Jen. She's 68. She was diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer in May. By Thanksgiving, the doctors were using words like responding well and cautiously optimistic. She'd lost weight, but her color was coming back. She wanted us all up at the cabin in the Poconos for the holiday, like we did when Dad was alive. She wanted normal. She wanted noise. Rafferty had offered to handle everything: the cabin rental, the groceries, the rotation of who'd help Mom with her meds and her port flushes. He told me on the phone in October that it would be good for all of us. He said it in the soft voice I hadn't heard from him in years, and I said yes before I'd even thought about it. That should have been my pause button. That voice. I keep coming back to that. By 10 in the morning, the cabin was full of footsteps. My niece, Posey, was 8, and my nephew, Cassian, was 5, and they'd been told there would be a Thanksgiving table the size of a boat and a snowman the size of a refrigerator, and they were determined to make both happen before lunch. My mother had come downstairs in her good cardigan and her wig and her slippers, and she was sitting in the leather chair by the fireplace letting Posey braid the tassels on the throw blanket. I made breakfast. Rafferty was on a call in the back bedroom. Sloane was setting the table. Around 11, my Aunt Wilna pulled up in her old Subaru. She's my mother's younger sister, 62, lives in a duplex in Scranton, and has worked as a billing manager at a pediatric clinic for 30 years. She and Mom hadn't spoken much since the funeral last year. Our cousin Brett died of an overdose, Wilma's only son, and Mom hadn't known what to say, so she'd said nothing for a while, and Wilma had taken it hard. They were still healing. Mom had insisted on inviting her anyway. I went out to help her with her bag. The driveway was already half-iced. Wilna hugged me, and she held on a beat longer than I expected. "You doing okay, honey? I'm tired," I said. "But she's doing better, Aunt Will. You'll see." She nodded. She looked past me at the cabin. "Holland," she said, "can I ask you something later? Just you and me?" "Sure," I said. "Tonight, maybe, after the kids are down." She nodded again. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at me. She picked up her bag and walked toward the porch. I should have asked her right then. I think about that a lot. Lunch was sandwiches at the counter. Cassian got mustard on the rug, which was a whole production. Rafferty came out of the back bedroom and was very polite to Aunt Wilna in this stiff country club way that didn't sound like him. Sloane talked a lot about a podcast she'd been listening to about gut health. My mother dozed in her chair. Around 2, Mom asked me to take her upstairs for a real nap. I helped her up the stairs slowly. She was breathing hard by the top. In the bedroom, I checked her port. I checked her pulse. I checked her pillbox. Wednesday's compartment was empty, but the Thursday compartment, tomorrow morning's pills, was empty too. Mom, I said, did Sloane give you any other pills today? Just the morning ones, sweetheart. I think. You think? She brought me a glass of water around 10. I might have had a couple more then. My head was hurting. I sat down on the edge of the bed. There's a medication my mother takes called ondansetron for nausea. There's another one called gabapentin for nerve pain. There's a third, and this is the one I started thinking about while I was sitting on that bed, called oxycodone for breakthrough pain, prescribed in very small quantities, very carefully tracked because of our family history. I went back downstairs. I told Sloane I needed to grab something from my car. I went outside in just my sweater, and I sat in the driver's seat of my Forester with the door closed, and I scrolled through my mother's patient portal on my phone. The last prescription refill for the oxycodone had been picked up on November 8, 30 tablets. We were 16 days in. There should have been at least 20 left. I drove to the gas station 3 miles down the road. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. I sat in the parking lot and I called the pharmacy that filled my mother's scripts, a small independent place in her hometown, run by a woman named Marcella who'd known my mother for 20 years. Holland, sweetheart, hi. Everything okay with Jen? I'm just double-checking something, I said. Can you tell me when she last refilled her oxy? There was a pause. Honey, she refilled it twice in November, once on the 8th and once on the 20th. I had to call her doctor on the second one because it was early, but he authorized it. She refilled it on the 20th? Sloane picked it up. She said Jen was having a hard week. I sat there in the car with the heater blowing on my face, and I did not cry. I did not do anything for about 90 seconds. Then I called my aunt's cell. Aunt Will, I said, I need to know what you wanted to ask me. She was quiet for a long time. Are you alone? Yes. Holland, your brother called me 3 weeks ago. He asked if I'd be willing to come up to the cabin for Thanksgiving and sign something for him. He said it was a small thing, a document about your grandmother's old land in Carbon County. He said your mother had agreed to deed it over to him as a gift, and he just needed a witness signature from family. He said he didn't want to bother you because you had enough going on. Did you sign it? No. I told him I wanted to ask Jen first. He got upset. He told me Jen wasn't really in a place to be making complicated decisions and that he was trying to handle the estate stuff before things got worse. Holland, he was talking like she was already gone. And then last week I called Jen myself and she didn't know anything about any deed transfer. Nothing. She got upset. She said she talked to him. And then she called me Sunday and said it was all a misunderstanding and to please come for Thanksgiving and not bring it up. I held the phone very tight. Aunt Will, where are you right now? In the guest room. I just got up here. Listen to me. I need you to stay in the cabin and act normal. I need you to not let Sloane or Rafferty be alone with my mother. Can you do that? Holland, what's happening? I don't know yet. I think I'm about to find out. Don't tell them you talked to me. I hung up. I started the engine. My hands were shaking, but not the way I expected. I drove to my mother's house, which was 46 minutes away. I let myself in with the key under the planter. I went straight to the small fireproof box in her bedroom closet where she kept the important paperwork. The will was there. Her advance directive was there. Her POA was there. The POA, the medical power of attorney, was dated October 3rd. I had been listed as the agent on it for the last 12 years. On the October 3rd version, it wasn't me anymore. It was Rafferty. The signature looked like hers, but the loop on the V was wrong. My mother had a very particular way of writing a V, almost like a check mark, because her arthritis made her wrist drop. This V was clean. Textbook. Practiced. I took photos of everything. I put it all back. I locked the box. Then I went into my mother's bathroom and I checked the medicine cabinet. The oxycodone bottle from the November 20th refill wasn't there. I checked her purse, which was on the kitchen counter from the last time she'd been home. Empty. I called the cabin from the driveway. Sloan, hey, sorry, I had to run to the CVS. Mom's needing more ginger candies for the nausea. I'll be another hour or so. Is she okay? She's still napping. You're so sweet to do that. How are her pain levels? She said she's okay. How are her pain levels? She said she's okay. I gave her the breakthrough one around 3 because she was hurting. Okay, thanks, Sloan. I hung up. It was 3:47. I sat in my mother's driveway and I made one more phone call. To a woman named Rima Corey, who had been my best friend in nursing school and was now a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration's diversion unit out of Philadelphia. Holland? She said. Holland, are you crying? No, I said, but I'm about to need help, and I don't know who else to call. I told her everything, the pillbox, the refills, the forged POA, Aunt Wilna's story, the cabin, my mother upstairs napping while a woman I no longer trusted was monitoring her pain levels. Rima was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Holland, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Don't go back to that cabin yet. I need you to drive to the state police barracks closest to you, and I need you to sit in their parking lot, and I'm going to make some calls. This isn't just a family dispute. If she's filling controlled substance prescriptions, and you can show that your mother isn't receiving the full count, that's diversion of a controlled substance. And if she's a healthcare professional or has access through one, this is a federal matter. Do you know if Sloan works in healthcare? She works in pharmaceutical sales, I said. For a company called Hadrian Therapeutics, she covers oncology practices in Eastern PA. There was a pause. Holland, Rima said. I'm calling you back in 15 minutes. Drive to the barracks. I drove to the state police barracks in Broadheadsville. I sat in the parking lot. Rima called me back in 11 minutes. She told me that 2 agents from her unit were on their way up from Philadelphia, that the state police were aware, and that I needed to do something hard. I needed to go back to the cabin. I needed to act normal. I needed to make sure my mother did not take another pill from any pillbox or any cup of water that Sloan handed her, and I needed to keep eyes on Sloan until the agents arrived. They were estimating 2 hours. Holland, Rima said, you are not law enforcement. You are a nurse and a daughter. Your only job is to keep your mom safe and your eyes open. Do not confront her. Do not say a word. Do you understand me? I understand. And Holland, if she tries to give your mother anything, even water, you intercept. You spill it. You drop it. Whatever you have to do. We'll handle the rest. I drove back. I picked up a bag of ginger candies at a gas station along the way so the story would hold up. The cabin was warm and bright when I came in. Posey was watching a Christmas movie on the couch even though it wasn't December yet. Cassian was asleep with his head on a stuffed dog. Aunt Wilna was on the love seat with a magazine she wasn't actually reading. Her eyes met mine the second I walked in. I put the candies on the counter. I went upstairs. My mother was awake. She was sitting up in bed with a book in her lap, and her color looked off to me. Paler than this morning, a little blue around the lips. I sat on the edge of the bed and I took her hand. Mom, I said very quietly. How are you feeling, honestly? A little floaty, she said. More than usual, but the pain is gone, sweetheart. How many pills have you had today? Sloan has been so good about it. I don't even keep track anymore. Mom, can I see your pillbox? She nodded toward the dresser. I picked it up. Thursday and Friday were both empty. Saturday's morning slot was empty. I put it down. I took my mother's wrist and counted her pulse. It was 48. My mother's resting pulse is normally 70. I went to the top of the stairs. Sloan was at the bottom of them, looking up. Everything okay up there? She's a little tired. I'm going to sit with her. Why don't you come down and have some wine with us? I can sit with her. I'm good, Sloan, thank you. She smiled. It was the measuring smile. I went back into the bedroom. I closed the door. I sat on the floor between my mother's bed and the door, and I texted Rima. Pulse 48, pinpoint pupils, bring naloxone. She texted back, 27 minutes out. Keep her awake, talk to her. I climbed onto the bed next to my mother. I told her about a patient I'd had 3 weeks ago who taught me how to make pierogies from scratch. I told her about the new coffee shop near my apartment. I told her about a dog I'd seen at the park who looked exactly like our old dog Pickle. I told her every dumb story I could think of, and every time her eyes started to slit closed, I squeezed her hand and made her look at me. "Holland," she said at one point, very softly, "I'm scared." "I know, Mom. I think something's wrong. I know help. Is something's wrong? I know. Help is coming. I just need you to stay with me. Okay." "Okay, baby." The knock on the front door came at 6018. I heard it from upstairs. I heard Rafferty's voice go up an octave. I heard a man's voice say "Dea," and I heard a woman's voice, Rima's, say "Ma'am, I need you to step away from the kitchen and put your hands where I can see them." I came down the stairs slowly with my mother's arm around my shoulder. There were 4 federal agents in the cabin and 2 state troopers behind them. Sloan was standing with her hands flat on the dining room table. Rafferty was sitting on the couch with his head in his hands, and Posey was crying into Aunt Wilna's sweater, and Cassian was still asleep on the floor. Somehow, miraculously, still asleep. The state troopers helped my mother into a chair by the fire. One of the agents, a woman named Officer Mendez, knelt next to her with a med kit and took her vitals. Rima came to me. She looked at me, and she didn't say anything for a second, and then she just put her hand on the back of my neck. "You did good," she said. "She's going to be okay. We've got an ambulance 2 minutes out." "What did she give her?" "We'll find out. We're searching the house. Holland, we found a prescription pad in her purse with 3 of your mother's signatures on it. 2 filled in, 1 blank." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. I think I'd already known. The ambulance came. The paramedics gave my mother naloxone in the driveway, and her color came back almost immediately. That sudden flush that always feels like a small miracle, no matter how many times I see it. They took her to the hospital in East Stroudsburg. Aunt Wilna rode with her. I stayed at the cabin until the agents were done with me. Rafferty was arrested for fraudulent inducement, forgery, and conspiracy to commit elder financial abuse. Sloan was arrested for diversion of a controlled substance, prescription fraud, and reckless endangerment with substantial enhancement because the victim was a vulnerable adult. The federal charges against Sloan were the heavier ones. Hadrian Therapeutics fired her by the following Monday and cooperated fully with the investigation, which led to her being charged with another 41 counts related to sample diversion at 3 different oncology practices she covered. The kids went to Aunt Wilna's that night. She'd already called her neighbor and the spare bedroom was made up. She thought to call before any of it happened, just in case. I think about that a lot too. I drove home around midnight after I'd made arrangements for Mom at the hospital and after I'd called my older sister in Oregon and woken her up and told her everything in a flat voice that didn't sound like me. Before I left the cabin, I went up to the back bedroom where Rafferty had been on his calls all day, and I looked at the desk. There was a folder there. The agents had taken the originals, but I'd seen what was in it before they bagged it. 3 drafts of a new will. 2 life insurance policy change forms with my mother's signature on them, redirecting both policies, totaling $420,000, to Rafferty alone, cutting out my sister and me. A deed transfer for the Carbon County land, a summary of my mother's brokerage account with notes in my brother's handwriting in the margins. He'd been planning it since June. The cancer diagnosis had given him a clock, and he'd built a whole architecture around it. The arraignment was the following Tuesday. Mom was still in the hospital, but she was alert and walking, and her pain was being managed by a palliative team I trusted. The trial was set for the following spring. Sloan's lawyer tried for a plea deal twice and was refused twice. Rafferty's lawyer worked out a plea. He took 6 years for the financial crimes and testified against Sloan on the diversion charges. The judge, a woman named Bridget Ahn, looked over her glasses at him during sentencing and said, "Mr. Breyer, you targeted your dying mother. There is a particular kind of cowardice in that, and I want it on the record." Sloan got 14 years. The federal sentencing guidelines on healthcare diversion are not gentle. My mother is in remission now. She moved in with me in March. We sold her house. She's in a small apartment 2 floors down from mine, and she has a Pomeranian named Buster. and she comes up to my place every Sunday for coffee. The Pomeranian comes too. He hates me. I'm working on it. Posey and Cassian live with Aunt Wilna full-time now. The state granted her permanent guardianship in February. Rafferty signed off on it from prison. Sloane's parental rights are still being adjudicated, but it doesn't matter much. The kids have asked, quietly, not to see her. Posey came up to the cabin with us this past July for a weekend. We had ice cream 3 times in 2 days. I'd promised her, back in November, that we'd get the ice cream we were supposed to get on Thanksgiving Day before everything happened. She didn't remember the promise, but I did. Aunt Wilna and my mother talk on the phone every morning now. They lost a year being awkward with each other after my cousin Brett died, and they're not wasting any more time. I think that's the quietest, biggest thing that came out of all of this. I don't work hospice anymore. I went back to oncology full-time at a teaching hospital in Bethlehem. I tell my new nurses, the ones rotating through, to count the pills. Always count the pills. Watch the pillbox. Trust the small things. I keep that pillbox of my mother's, the one from the cabin. I cleaned it out and I keep it in a drawer next to my bed. I don't know why. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I take it out and I open all 7 of the little doors and I look at them, empty in a row, and I close them again. It's a strange habit. I don't expect anyone else to understand it. The night I came home from the cabin, I sat on my kitchen floor with my back against the dishwasher, and I called my older sister back because she was crying when I'd hung up earlier, and I'd promised I'd call again. We talked for 2 hours. Around 3 in the morning, she said, "Hall, how did you know? How did you actually know in the moment?" I thought about it for a long time. I knew because she moved the pillbox, I said. Mom's pillbox was in the wrong place. That was it. That was the whole thing. That's it. That was the whole thing. That's it. That's it. He told me in October it would be good for all of us, and his voice sounded soft, and I should have known then. But I didn't. I knew when the pillbox was in the wrong place. She was quiet. "Trust the small things, Hall," she said. "Yeah," I said. Trust the small things. I sat on that kitchen floor until the sun came up. My phone was full of messages I'd deal with later. Outside, somebody's car was scraping ice off a windshield. The radiator clicked on. I could hear it from the floor, that small mechanical hum that means a building is doing what it's supposed to do, keeping the people inside it warm, keeping them alive. I went to bed at sunrise. I slept for 14 hours. When I woke up, the first thing I did was call the hospital and ask how my mother had slept. She'd slept fine. She'd asked for oatmeal. She'd asked when I was coming. I told the nurse to tell her I was on my way. I've thought a lot, in the months since that Thanksgiving, about how my brother got to be the kind of man who could draft a will for his dying mother in June and start emptying her pill bottles by November. Rafferty wasn't born that way. I remember him at 12 teaching me how to ride a bike in our driveway. I remember him at 17 carrying our mother's groceries up 3 flights of stairs when her back was bad. Somewhere between then and now, he made 1,000 small choices, and every single one of them was a step. He chose the marriage. He chose to let Sloane's ambition become his ambition. He chose, when our mother got sick, to see her diagnosis as a deadline instead of a clock he could sit beside. None of it happened in a single moment. It happened in the small, daily turning away from the person he used to be. That's the part I want to hold on to. Not the federal agents or the courtroom or the gavel. The fact that character is built or dismantled in pieces too small to notice, until one day, the pillbox is in the wrong place on the windowsill and the whole architecture of a person's choices becomes visible all at once. I'm not a brave person. I want to say that clearly. When I drove to that gas station and called the pharmacy, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. When I called Aunt Wilna, I almost hung up twice. What I had wasn't courage. What I had was a habit, built up over 11 years of nursing, of paying attention to small things, counting pills, watching pulses, trusting the data even when it disagreed with the story I wanted to believe. That habit saved my mother's life. Not bravery, attention. I think that's the thing I'd want anyone listening to take home. Decency isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's mostly built out of small daily choices to look at what's actually in front of you instead of what you wish was in front of you. And when something feels wrong, when a voice sounds softer than it should, when a pillbox sits in a place it shouldn't, when a sister-in-law smiles at you like she's measuring something, you don't have to know everything in that moment. You just have to be willing to ask the next question. And then the one after that. My mother is alive. My niece and nephew are safe with Aunt Wilna. My brother is in a state prison in Pennsylvania, and I have not visited him, though I think someday I might. Not because he deserves it, because forgiveness, when I finally get there, will be a choice I make for myself, the way every other choice in my life is a small step toward the person I'm trying to become. I'm still building her. I think most of us are still building.